All right, we're going to jump right into the teaching, so I'd encourage you guys to get your notes out. If you've got those in front of you, take a few notes. If you have questions, certainly write those down. We don't usually have time during the meeting to actually take questions. It's already close to 7:30, and I would certainly want to make sure we get our East Coast crew out as soon as possible. Just a reminder to those of you that are here, at the end of the night, after we've said goodbye to our other groups, we will do our networking and marketing session. So if you're here primarily for that, please hang tight. We'll do that as soon as we get finished. Okay, so tonight, again, we're going into presenting the offer. This is part 3 of negotiation tactics and strategies. Again, part 1 and 2 are on the website. I'll do a little bit of review tonight, but real quickly, let's go through an outline. I'll let you know what we're going to be getting into, and hopefully we'll throw out a few pointers and a few nuggets that you guys can take home and start implementing quickly in your real estate business. First off, we'll do a brief review of parts 1 and 2, and then we'll get into some of the new content, and that gets right into presenting the offer to the seller, and some of the strategies, techniques, and tactics you want to use when you're sitting across from a seller. And you're going to hear me harp on this whole communication styles and personalities, because that really is a critical component and ingredient that not enough people consider, but we'll get into that a little bit more in just a second. But we need to be in the right frame of mind. Not only do you need to be in the right frame of mind, especially if you're a beginning investor, but you also need to make sure you are considering your seller's frame of mind, which goes to their communication style, which we talked about in part 1. We're also going to talk about being a problem solver, which is really what we do when dealing with motivated sellers. It's not always about dollars and cents. In fact, it's not even primarily about dollars and cents. It's about solving the problem or whatever the point of motivation is for that seller. We're going to talk about the shy yes. I'll get into that in a second. We'll talk about making multiple offers, which is a very critical ingredient, I think, to having additional success than you may be having, is thinking outside of the box and not getting just in one lane when you're investing and thinking in this one way, but making sure that you're making multiple offers. And then lastly, we'll talk about overcoming objections. And certainly most of you guys probably know what the number 1 objection is, but we'll get to that here in just a second. So again, real quickly, our review, okay? Effective negotiation, and I've mentioned this both months, and this phrase is really one that I want to make sure that I kind of pound into your head, and maybe if you missed another meeting, I want to make sure everybody gets this, because it's a very, very important thing for you to understand, specifically as you invest and motivated sellers, okay? Effective negotiation is about, and this goes across outside of real estate, it goes to everything. Effective negotiation is about creating win-win outcomes. You want both sides to be able to feel like they have won, okay? And now what some people have a challenge with, and again, I've mentioned this both months, is that sometimes in this business, when dealing with motivated sellers, we don't understand how this seller selling extremely cheap is a win for them. We get how it's a win for us, right? But we don't necessarily understand how them selling for way less than market value when they could sell it for much more is a win for them. And what you have to wrap your mind around, especially if you're new in this business, you haven't been doing this long enough and you haven't seen, because what I love is, like, especially some of our members, whether it's Jared Irby over in Alabama, I know some of you guys have done it here locally as well. Jared's the best at it. He always gets testimonials from his motivated seller clients, and I absolutely love it. I'll go on and I'll watch them all the time. And almost every single time you'll have somebody who is selling their house for significantly less than it's worth, and yet they will get on camera and say how thankful they are that Jared came along and bought their house, because they're not excited that they got less for it than it's worth. They're excited that Jared solved their problem and solved it quickly, okay? And so that's why what you got to understand, creative real estate investing rule number 1 is motivated sellers define a win very differently than you do. You're an investor. You're in the business to make money. You define a win as making money, right? They define it far, far differently. And that's why they get on those testimonial videos and say, hey, we had to move quickly. We needed to sell in just a few days. Jared came in and was able to buy it in a few days. If we had to deal with a realtor, it could have taken months, right? Or I inherited this house from my mom. I had all these memories of my childhood. It was every time I went over there, it was sad. I broke down crying. I just wanted to be done with it. He came and bought it, fair price. I was happy. We moved on, right? I didn't have to deal with the emotions of it. There's all these different reasons why motivated sellers consider it a win, and it's not just, and normally not is it even primarily, dollars and cents. You have to wrap your head around that if you're going to be effective in this business, because when you're sitting across the table from them, if you think the priority is the dollars and cents, you are missing it, and you're going to end up offering too much or not crafting crafting the deal in such a way that's meeting their need, okay? We also talked about the 4 major communication styles, and I'll harp on this over and over again because it's so important. You'll hear me say it a couple more times in this presentation in the way that it goes around you actually presenting the offer, is that we're 4 major communication styles we talked about. The parrot, who is our talker, right? You all know somebody who's a parrot. Some of you are the parrot. Is this Betsy Tate over here? Some of you are a parrot, right? You're the talker. In a crowd, they're the voice that you hear, right? We all know the talker. You got the parrot dress on, right? So we know the colorful, the bright, the outgoing, the talker. You've got the dove. These are our peacemakers. They're the gentle ones. Everybody knows a dove. My wife is a dove. We got the owls. They're our thinkers. They're the analytical ones. They're the engineers in the room. They're like, right? They got to know the details. You got to understand them. And you got to know the eagles. They're the movers. They're the shakers. They're more aggressive. They're more blunt. They want to negotiate. They want to go back and forth. You've got to understand these communication styles because, as I mentioned in part 1, when you have different communication styles, there is naturally a band of tension between you and the other communication style. And if you simply stay entrenched in the way that you talk, in the way that you communicate, all that does is increase the tension on that band between you two and makes it more difficult for you to come to a meeting of the minds. But when you recognize their communication style and start moving their direction and putting the conversation in the fashion or in the form and the offer in the form that they're going to be more able to easily accept, you're able to decrease that tension on that band and make it more likely that you guys are going to be able to come to a meeting of the minds and come to an offer that everybody's going to be able to agree to. Okay, so you want to definitely deal with them on their level. Okay, we also talked about last month, we talked about dealing with motivated sellers, and we talked about the importance of the initial phone conversation. Okay, that initial phone conversation is very important. Most of the time when you're doing motivated seller marketing, at some point, whether it's a referral or it's a business card or somebody calls and says, hey, I heard you bought my friend's mobile home park, I've got a mobile home park, usually there is going to be an initial phone conversation. And there's some very important aspects of that phone conversation you need to make sure that you're hitting on. Okay, number 1 is you got to build rapport. This is the time for you to be able to start making a connection with them. If you're not good with making a connection, if you're not good on the phone, if you sound gruff or like a serial killer or something like that, then you probably need to get yourself a virtual assistant, okay? You got to make sure that you're able to build some kind of rapport on the phone because you're trying to move yourself from stranger, complete and utter stranger that they just simply called up to buy their house, that they're going to now invite into their home, typically after hours, after work, at night. They better have a comfort level with you before they're going to be able to do that. You've got to be able to move it from point A to point B to that appointment on that phone conversation, okay? And also in this phone conversation, you are beginning to uncover through the questions. Of course, you guys know we talked about the seller profile sheet that's available on the website. If you don't have one, you can go to the website on the members section and print that off. But we went through the seller profile sheet, the important questions you need to be asking in order to start uncovering the seller's needs, their motivations, and their emotional triggers. My sons and I have been enjoying, they've gotten real into poker, and so we've been watching, I don't know if you've seen it on ESPN, they've got the World Series of Poker, right? And so they love watching it, and then they run over to the table, and they've got chips, and they're going to, act like they're that. But one of the things I find so intriguing is that oftentimes if you're a great poker player, it's really not all that important, the cards that you're holding in your hand. It's if you're able to pinpoint what you think they're holding in their hand, and you understand what their needs are, what their motivations are, what their emotional triggers are, what they think you have in your hand. If you're able to represent that, oftentimes you can win the hand with garbage just because you understand what they're thinking over there. And if you've got a really good hand, you make what they call a value bet because you want them to call it. Or if you don't want them to call it, you make a bigger bet to try to get them to fold, right? But oftentimes it doesn't matter what cards you're holding. It's if you understand what they're dealing with, if you understand what's in their head, if you understand their motivations, you're more likely to create a situation where you're going to win. Okay, and so it's really critical that you take advantage of that and understand, do everything you can to uncover these needs. Remember, we're dealing with motivated sellers. So one of the most important aspects of getting a deal from a motivated seller is understanding why they're motivated and making sure your offer meets that need. All right? So now after that, this is still some of the review. We talked about making sure you do your homework. Okay, for those of you that weren't here in previous months, we'll make sure that you get this point. After you've had that initial phone conversation, you've gotten some of that basic information. There's some other stuff, some other information you need to pull together and make sure that you're ready and prepared before you meet with them. Okay, some of that is, are there other liens and judgments? Okay, is there a second mortgage you don't know about? Is there a lien against the property, a judgment against the property that could affect whether or not you're able to make the offer you want? Are there unpaid property taxes? Do you have your ARV and your comps, right? You're going to want, I'm going to talk about it here in just a second. When you end up meeting with them and you go to present the offer, you want to have some comps of some recent sales in the neighborhood in case they put you on the spot and make you validate why your offer is where it is, okay? Because one of the big objections we're going to get to in just a second may require you to have some comps. So you need to have an ARV, you need to have some comps that support your low price, you need to get to know the decision makers, okay? You're about to sit down with somebody and yes, they've given you some points of motivation. Hopefully, if you were able to build some rapport on the phone, you guys were able to chat a little bit, you're able to connect with them on a personal level, you've probably found out some of their needs, you've probably found out some of their motivations, but there are certainly some things that people will not reveal to you on a phone conversation. Oftentimes, some of those things you can find out on social media because you'll be amazed what people will post on their Facebook page letting you know about why they really need to sell that house that maybe they didn't tell you in person. Additionally is that walkthrough. It's another opportunity for you to build additional rapport and learn more about that seller. You remember that for those of you that were here last month, you remember me telling the NASCAR story. You remember that after I connected with that guy and I had found a commonality with him, even though I knew nothing about NASCAR, because we connected on that level for 30 minutes, I could ask him any question and he would have told me. There are a lot of things that once you build that rapport face to face, there's things people reveal to you face to face that they wouldn't have on a phone conversation. Make sure that as you're walking through the property, examining the property, seeing what repairs need to be made, you're also taking advantage of that time to continue to build rapport with the seller and find out more about their emotional triggers, their needs, why they're motivated to sell this property. Because if you don't know their needs, if you don't know their motivation, you are not prepared to present an offer to them. If it's just, I'm going to walk in, make an all-cash offer, here it is, take it or leave it. You might get one or two. You might get a deal every now and again. But you're certainly not going to have sustained success in this business unless you become a problem solver and you understand how to meet motivated sellers' needs. Okay, now, before presenting the offer, now this is going to be a little bit more specific for our first-time investors, our newer investors, but some of this stuff is certainly probably critical for all of us, even those of us that have been doing this business for a while. Before you get, now you've got all your information, okay? This is some new content. That was all review. We're done with that. We're going to move into some of the new content. After we've gotten all of our information together, we've gone through our seller profile sheet, we've gotten some points of motivation, we've walked through, we've estimated our repairs, we've connected with the seller, we've got some rapport there, we've built that up, right? Now it's time to sit down with them and begin to present our offer. We have to flip a switch in our own mind, okay, and make sure that we get ourselves in the right frame of mind, okay? We all have bad days. We all have drama. We all have sinus infections from time to time, right? It's important that you're able to set that stuff to the side and put your game face on, okay? Because what you have to understand the seriousness about what you're about to embark on. Not only are you going to possibly be able to solve a very big problem for somebody in need, but you could also be creating a $20, $30, $40, $50,000 paycheck for yourself that could drastically impact your financial situation. You cannot take this meeting lightly. If you've gotten to the point where now you're sitting across from the seller and about to make an offer, you need to make sure you've gotten yourself in the right frame of mind. And you understand, yeah, we've built rapport, yeah, we've talked NASCAR, but it's time to deal. Okay, it's time to make a business transaction and I need to have my game face on and be ready to do business. Okay, part of that is having confidence in yourself. Okay? Because listen, one of the biggest reasons why I've seen many investors, they'll come to me and they'll say, well, I went, I made an offer, it didn't work out, and I just didn't know how I was going to make the offer because I don't really have the money to buy it, and what if they said yes, and then what if I couldn't find somebody to wholesale it to? I mean, even just trying to explain the story to me, they had absolutely zero confidence, and I know if you don't have confidence in yourself, the seller is definitely not going to have confidence in you, okay? So this is one of those times when you got to fake it till you make it, right? You've heard that that saying before. And this is it. You got to walk in there like you know what you're doing. And if you don't, get a joint venture partner to go with you, right? Team up with the Jay Paul, with the Tom Wire, with the Bob Preston, with somebody in this room who has done these deals before, and let them run the lead. Or you continue to run the lead if you have the connection with them, but say, we've done this, we've done that, we've done this, right? We is you and them, right? What, you got a mouse in your pocket? We've done this. It's all about we've done it because he's standing next to you, right? Or you can say we've done it in referring to the PIG, the group that I'm a part of, right? That gives you strength, right? And I tell people this all the time. If you have any hesitancy or you have any, concern about do you have the money or do you have the ability to perform, you are part of one of the most powerful, active, profitable real estate investing clubs and groups in this entire area. When you walk in and say, yes, the investing club, the team that I'm a part of, we've invested in tens of millions of dollars of real estate in the last few years, and I know we can make this deal happen at the right price. You go in with that confidence. If you don't, you're not getting the deal. Okay? They're going to give it to the guy who does walk in with confidence, right? Some of these guys that have done this before. You got to make sure that you're going in there with confidence. You also got to make sure that you check your emotions at the door. Again, remember, this is a business transaction. And when you get emotional, you never win. Okay, and I've seen this from a number of investors who will go into a deal. Don't let the eagle's aggression throw you off your game. Don't let the dove sob story cloud your judgment, okay? And don't let your desire to do your first deal cause you to overpay. You go in with a set of numbers, you know what it's worth, you've determined your ARV, you've worked with a realtor, you walked through and estimated the repairs with our estimator we put online for you. We try to give you all the tools you need. You go in there boldly, and you go in there ready to make a decision and to make an offer. If you can't do that, team up with somebody. Okay? You guys know I'd rather have, 100%, I'm going to mess up the same. Have something or all or nothing, right? You guys know, I'd rather have half of something than all or nothing. Team up with it. You say that all the time because you're always partnering with people. But listen, I'd rather have half of something than all or nothing. So if you don't have that, you keep losing deal after deal after deal when you meet with motivated sellers, get somebody to go with you till you get a couple under your belt. That will give you the confidence and instill that in you so that then you can start doing it on your own. You got to get to that place because if you don't get yourself right, you're wasting your time meeting with these sellers, okay? And you're just throwing deals and leads out the door that you've spent money to generate, and I hate to see that happen, okay? Next thing we got to consider. Make sure that when we're presenting the offer, we're sitting down, we're about to talk through the offer with them, we're about to tell them what we can do for them. Make sure that you're also considering the seller's frame of mind, right? We got your frame of mind right now. We got to consider the seller's frame of mind, and that's going right back to my personality types, okay? You've heard me mention it already twice tonight. I'm going to say it a third time because it's so critical. If it wasn't important, I wouldn't be repeating it. I can tell you, it's amazing to me how many investors I've seen who are not having the success that they want because they try to go in with one size fits all and make the same type of offer. It could be all cash, or all they do is subject to, or all they do is this, or they make the same offer the same way with the same tone of voice to the to this person, even though there's a myriad of personalities and a myriad of communication styles, and yet they try to force feed people the same offer. And do they get some? Every once in a while, because they just happen to have the same personality style that it meets with. But there's so many more they don't because they don't navigate appropriately the different type of people that they're speaking to. You try to go force feed an offer. You try to not let a parrot talk when they want to talk it out. You try to cut them off and say, hey, I got to get somewhere. We need to go ahead and sign this offer. They back away and say, I got to think about it. Okay? As soon as you try to push them away from their personality style into your personality style, they're going to back away and say, I got to think about it, and you're going to stop getting, and the investor who does understand this is going to walk in right behind you and get the deal signed up right away because they go with this, okay? So remember your personality types. The owl needs specifics. Okay? So if you know you're dealing with a thinker, you know you're dealing with an owl, you better get ready to go through, when you present the offer, go through the contract language line by line. There's some people who are not, we call in the business, are they readers, right? If you ask any title agent, Eric Hansen knows what I'm talking about. Most of the time people just go and sign their mortgage, right? Because half the time it's like 50 to 100, but Corey Rademacher, he says 50 to 100 pages, right? So who reads their mortgage? And every once in a while you go to a closing, right? And it's like 2 hours later, and we were supposed to be in there an hour and a half ago, and we're still not in there. Why are we not in there yet? Oh, we got a reader. Oh, boy, right? Oh, we got a reader. They're reading every line of the mortgage, okay? Like they're going to slide in there. You got to sacrifice your firstborn to us on the 12th month or something. Like they're just going to sneak that into the mortgage, right? Oh, we got a reader. Sometimes you get a reader, right? And if you know you've got a thinker, you better not just go rushing through the offer. They're going to think you're trying to pull one over on them, right? You better be ready to go through line by line the contract and explain what each part of it means. You may even preemptively go in with a list of frequently asked questions so that you can go through those. This is what a lot of investors ask. If you allow the thinker to think, many times you'll get to the end game and they'll still sign a contract with you and not say, I need to think about it. You got to let them think through the process, and you're more likely to get them to sign when you meet them there, okay? And not let it fall to another investor who will let them think because you're so busy trying to rush them, okay? You got to know that the parent needs to talk it out. So at the end of every 5 minutes of conversation, say, do you have any questions for me? Is there anything you need to discuss about this? Make sure you allow them to talk it out. That's going to move them to a place where they're willing to sign. The dove is emotional, so speak to it, right? If they've given you their sob story and how sad it is to leave the house and how they raised their kids there, and that's right where, little Timmy fell, and Timmy again, sorry, that's right where little Billy fell, and Timmy in the well, and Lassie, and no, but that's right where he fell, and he skinned his knee, and she's telling you all these stories, then you need to speak to us. Say, listen, I know this is tough for you. I get that. Like, I know it's emotional. Like, I remember my first house and this. I mean, I get it. Like, I get that. I know this is tough, but we can solve this, right? Speak to it. Speak to it. Don't ignore it. Don't overlook it. Don't act like it's no big deal. Speak to it, okay? Be understanding with the dove. You're more likely to make a connection at which they're going to feel comfortable signing that contract with you. And the eagle's big picture, right? They're negotiators, so be ready to go back and forth, but they're also big picture. So when you present the offer, they probably are not going to read the contract. Like, you try to go through the contract language with them, they're going to be like, I got to go, man. They're gone, right? So forget that. Get to the bottom line, negotiate it out, work it out, get it signed, and move on. You're painting the big picture for the Eagles, right? So understand that going in. Your mindset's got to be right, but you also got to understand what the seller's mindset is on the other side of that, okay? Now, when you go to present the offer, I'm talking about motivated sellers here, okay? I'm not talking about every deal. I'm not talking about every seller. I'm talking about motivated sellers. Never lead with price. Okay? Never jump right into price. If you're dealing with traditional sellers or a realtor, most sellers, traditional sellers, first thing they want to know, what is the price? What's the asking price? When you make an offer to a motivated seller, you don't lead with price. You're a problem solver, okay? You're going to lead with how are you going to solve their problem. Now, part of that may have something to do with money, okay? But we're going to lead with how we're going to solve the problem. Remember, it's needs and motivations. It's a motivated seller. We want to make sure we're meeting needs and motivations, okay? So there's a bunch of different problems they could be facing. This is not an exhaustive list, but I'm just going to run through a few quick ones so you can see the examples here, okay? They can't afford the payments, right? They can't afford the expenses. They can't afford the upkeep. You're going to get that one a lot. That can be due to a lot of different reasons. Job loss, divorce, disability. They inherited it, so it's a second home. Maybe it's free and clear, but they can't even afford the property taxes. I've heard that one plenty of times, right? They can't afford it. That's one, right? They're tired of dealing with tenants. You could have maybe a little bit older person, retiree. They've had a lot of rental properties, but they're just fed up with dealing with tenants, people damaging the property, having to collect rent. They're tired of dealing with tenants. They have immediate cash needs. This is probably the most common for those of you that deal with a lot of motivated sellers. They need cash and they need it now, right? So they have immediate cash needs. It's another problem we need to be solving. Timing. Timing is another quick one that we don't consider enough, and I mentioned it in previous meetings. Sometimes we talk about how we can close fast. Sometimes that's the benefit. I'm going to show you an example of a deal we did not too long ago where closing fast mattered. But sometimes closing slow is what matters, right? You always go in there and say, yeah, we can close and we close fast, we can close fast. If that person needs 3 more months in order to be able to move, and you keep telling them how fast you can close and how fast you can close and how fast you can close, they're going to freak out and be like, this isn't the guy for me. I need to find somebody else. So you need to make sure that when you're asking these questions, it's not just how fast you can close, is that you can close on the date of their choice. Okay? You can close when they need, or you can let them close and stay in the property a little bit longer, as long as you can work out some details, et cetera. You can legally cover yourself if they're going to stay in the property. So timing. You'd be amazed at how much value you can create or money you can make for yourself by understanding the importance of timing. Okay, this is an example. This is a property that I did with Paul. Is Paul Matatat here? I didn't see Paul. Yeah, okay, this is a JV that I did with Paul Matatat a year or so ago. And again, timing is everything. This is 2304 Windstone Drive right here in Pensacola. The great thing about this house, we made a killing on it. And we bought this house for $22,000, okay? The reason why we were able to get it so good, it all boiled down to timing, okay? This guy had originally, he'd been calling Paul for a while. Paul had sent in some motivated seller marketing, and he had been trying to get much more for the property. I don't remember exactly 30, 40 something thousand dollars. Actually, another investor had told me the guy had called them and was trying to sell it, I think, for $30,000, $40,000, something like that. It needed a lot of work. But he eventually called Paul back in like mid-December and said his accountant had told him if he sells it by the end of the year so that he can take that big loss on it and write it off on his taxes, the loss, that he might as well go ahead and drop the price way down. And so he was willing to sell it to us for way less than it really was actually worth, even in poor condition, and sold it to us for $22,000. So Paul called me and he said, can you close in,
Christmas party.
Yeah, was it the Christmas party? Can you close in like 10 days? Now understand, it's not just, is it like the middle of December and we only have 10 or 15 days. It's weekends, it's Christmas, it's New Year's Eve. It's like everybody's closed. Like how do you, I mean, you've got like 5 working days to get this deal done. You got to try to get home inspectors out there, so I mean, it was a big deal. But because I was able to get the money and we were able to close on it that quickly, I partnered with him to do it. We were able to purchase this home. We resold it for like $125 after, I can't remember how much we put into it, but we ended up making about $45,000 on a $120,000 resale. I mean, those margins are astronomical. The reason why we made so much was because of timing. But it's not always fast timing. Like I said, sometimes it is the ability to give a person additional timing to stay in the house. But again, solving problems, meeting needs, many times will allow them to take far less than they originally would have. So make sure that you're leading, not with price, but with fixing the problem. Okay? Presenting the offer, the shy yes. Okay? This is a big concept that I want you to get. Again, not leading with price. Okay? And that goes, keep forgetting my water's here. Not leading with price. We want to get what we call the shy yes. This is the way I love to present my offers. Okay? This is an old marketing principle. I know Eddie's very familiar with it. In the internet marketing space, they call it the shy yes. I think it's similar. The good analogy is the dating scenario as well. When you go to any kind of internet marketing site or you go to somewhere where they're trying to sell you information, especially if you've gone to real estate, I want to learn how to flip houses or whatever. Almost every website you go to that's going to teach you how to flip houses, Bigger Pockets as well. A lot of you guys are Bigger Pockets. One of the first things you see is sign up right here for this free whatever, free podcast, free report, free book, free ebook, free whatever, right? That's the shy yes. That's what's known in the internet marketing world as the shy yes. If they can just get you to give your name and email address, you don't have to give them any money, you don't have to, it's just starting the relationship, right? I just want to start getting some yeses. If I can get some yeses from you, eventually I might be able to get you to buy something for a few dollars, and then I can maybe get you to buy, they don't jump right to the $10,000 seminar, out in, Las Vegas somewhere, right? So they get this shy yes, and they start moving you along the process. That's how the internet marketing world works, right? And so it's the same way with dating, right? You're not going to, first time you meet somebody, first time you met her, you probably didn't get down on one knee and propose, right? So first time you meet somebody, you don't get down and propose to them. You maybe get their phone number. At least that's the way we did it in my day. I think now they get their Snapchat or something like that. But anyway, any of you guys got Snapchat? How many Snapchatters you got there? I know those of them up in the rooftop lounge at the Icon building all got the Snapchat. But anyway, okay. So you get their Snapchat or whatever, then you ask them out for coffee, then it's a formal date, and then you're like eventually at least a marriage. But you don't jump right into proposing to them. It's the same way when you want to present an offer. You're going to be a lot more successful. You're going to be a lot more effective in presenting your offers if you go through and get some yeses from them. Get some what they call the shy yes. Get them to just start saying yes, because agreement begets agreement. Okay, so you're going to go through some of the things that you have already agreed on based on the answers to the questions they've given you from your profile sheet, from your discussions, from your probing questions. So you say, okay, so we have, you've said that you want to close on X date, that you'd be fine moving out and getting everything done, and we can close on, whatever date is. Does that work for you? Yes. Okay, so now you understand, it's as is. We're not requiring you to make any repairs. We're going to fix everything up. We're in full agreement on that, correct? Yes. Okay, and then so on closing costs, you know that as an investor, all the deals we do, we're going to be paying all the closing costs. So you guys, you won't have to pay any closing costs. The only thing you would be responsible for would be proration. So if there's any property taxes or whatever, we're in agreement there, right? Yes, right? So if we're getting these yeses as we're not leading right to the price, right? We want to slowly but surely make sure we're getting some yeses as we're going through this process. Then we want to get some yeses on solving their problem, okay? This is just kind of greasing the skids a little bit. This is getting us prepared to be able to lay out our offer in a way that they're more likely to agree to it, right? Tenants, right? So if their big problem is, again, going back to a few of them that I mentioned just a second ago, if they have tenants, they're sick and tired of tenants, and you say to them, hey, listen, I know you loved the monthly cash flow of having these rental properties. You're just sick of the tenants, right? So if I could get you similar or close to the same cash flow, but you didn't ever have to deal with tenants again. Is that something you'd maybe consider? Well, yeah, sure. I mean, if I can get the cash flow without the tenants, yeah, let's talk about it, right? So now we're going to lead them into possible owner financing, right? You get it? So now if we're going to, let's say they can't afford it. They say, we just can't afford the house, we can't afford the monthly payments. Okay, well, let me do this. If I would be able to take the monthly payments away, where you wouldn't have to pay the payments anymore, and we could close in a few days and you wouldn't even have to make the next monthly payment, is that something you would consider? Now where are we at? Subject to, right? Now we're at subject to. But we've gotten to them to already kind of agree to it without laying out, well, subject to the existing mortgage and you deed it to me. And, let's first, agreement begets agreement. Let's let them agree in principle that if you could take the payment away and close in a few days, is that something you would be willing to do? Well, sure. All right, well, let me show you how I can do it, right? Okay? What if they need cash, right? So now if I can get you that cash you need, remember we talked about last month, they may not need, maybe it's a $50,000 house that they own free and clear, but they've told you they only need to sell it because they need $15,000 for a vacation or a boat or whatever, right? So if you go to, well, if I can get you that cash you need, right? If I can get you that cash you need that we talked about, you think we can do a deal? Yeah, I think so, right? Well, but what your offer is going to be is I'm going to get you the $15,000 you need, the other $35,000 in equity. Let's see if we can work out some payments, right? So a good agreement begets agreement. Let's get the yeses flowing, and then we get to what we call the consistency theory of marketing or consistency theory of business. Whenever and Eric will attest to this too, because I know he's a realtor. When I was as a real estate agent, whenever we would walk somebody through a house, and we would always want to get to the place where if it seemed like it was a property that they liked, and we had shown them a bunch of houses, and we were in a place where, okay, let's see if we can get this under contract. Because the consistency theory says that if I put something under contract, and I write a contract, now I have this kind of strong emotional pull to be consistent and close on that house, right? Because I've written the contract, I've told them my friends were buying this house. I even drove my parents by it. They think it's really cool. It's in the school district we like. We have actually on paper formally come to an agreement with somebody. If then after we do a home inspection, we find out there's certain things wrong with it that had we known ahead of time, we may have never made the offer. Oftentimes we will overlook those things even if the seller won't fix them all because we now feel like we have to be consistent. We said we were going to buy this house. Now, is that foolproof? Of course. If it needs a $10,000 roof and a $5,000 HVAC, people will back out of deals. They do it. But they're less likely to back out once they've written the contract and they find out something is wrong with it than they were had they found out ahead of time. Okay? That's the consistency theory. So if we've got agreement begetting agreement, and we've gotten the shy yes, and they've already told us if we could solve their payment problem and close in a few days, yes, they do it, then now it's not as hard to kind of make that leap to, okay, let me show you how I can do it. They've already agreed to it, so now they feel the pressure to be consistent to what they've already kind of agreed to. Okay? That's the whole principle of the shy yes. Then, after we've gotten there, now we're going to present our offer. Okay, this is time we're going to present our offer, and I think one of the biggest mistakes that many investors make is always making one offer. Okay, you really, when you're making offers to motivated sellers, should be making multiple offers. Okay, so we're going to go through what those would look like. Okay, making multiple offers, giving people a choice. When you give somebody a choice, and this is a fill in the blank in your notes there. When you give a people choice, people usually what? Pick one. Right? They choose one. And that's an old school sales technique when you call somebody up and you're trying to sell them a, Noni juice or a Kirby vacuum or whatever. You say, hey, would it be better for me to come by on Tuesday or Thursday? Now, for those of you that know that technique, go, neither, go away, click, right? But usually when people are given a choice, they pick one. So you say Tuesday or Thursday, they say Thursday. Oh, okay, morning or afternoon, right? So you give them a choice, they usually pick one. If you don't give them a choice, you just give them one, what's the answer? Yes or no? We want to keep people out of yes or no situations. So we want to give people a choice because they're going to choose one. Too many investors get in a rut of, this is what I want to do, this is how I buy, this is how I make every offer. And when they make every offer that way, sometimes it works, but sometimes people don't always agree to that. And if you make the offer in multiple ways, sometimes people will find elements of one offer that they like, and then you just tweak it a little bit and you're able to make a deal. Now, it may not necessarily be a deal you want in that form or fashion. Maybe you don't like subject to, but if they like subject to, I bet you can find an investor in here to flip it to who does like subject to. Okay? So we're going to make sure that you're making multiple offers so that they will hopefully choose one and won't give you the no. Okay? Offer one, whenever I make multiple offers, I always want my first offer to be the one that I think best satisfies their need. Okay, so I can't tell you what that is now, but obviously going through whether it was cash or whether it was, owner financing or whatever I think is going to best, based on the information they gave me, why they're motivated, how can I structure a deal that's going to best satisfy their need while minimizing and limiting the amount of cash I got to put out of pocket, right? The most favorable deal for me that meets their immediate need is what I'm going to offer to them first. Secondly, I'm always going to make an all-cash offer. One of your 3 offers should always be an all-cash offer. I don't care how much they owe on the property. Okay? If they owe 75 and your best offer is 30, offer 30. Hold up a second. They'd have to bring $50,000 or something to the closing table. We've had it happen many times. In fact, there was a guy in Mobile, I think it was Mobile, a couple of months ago who the seller brought $75,000. I don't know if Jeremiah's here. How much did your seller bring to the table? $25,000 the seller brought to the table for him to buy a property that he's rehabbing, okay? You always, if you get nothing else out of tonight, get this. It's in your notes, right? Never, ever, ever think for the seller. Never think for the seller. How many times have there's no way they'd agree to that. They owe 75, there's no way they'd agree to 30. I bet Blake, who flipped me a house not too long ago and made a $40-something thousand assignment fee, that ain't too bad. I bet when he offered them 40, there had to be a part of him who thought, unless they came up with that number, there's no way they would take this on a house that has an ARV of 170, right? He maybe didn't think that. That's why he got it for that. But a lot of you in here would have thought, there's no way I could offer X amount of dollars for a house that is worth far more than that. Never, ever think for the seller. Never think they'll never do owner financing. They'll never do subject to. They'll never do this. Make the multiple offers and let them decide on which one. Which one do they give more attention to? And then tweak it if you have to. You're more likely to get a deal when you make multiple offers. But always make a cash offer, okay? And offer number 3 then is going to be another creative offer that you didn't use in number 1, okay? So whichever one best met their need was number 1. Number 2 was an all-cash offer. Number 3 was just some other creative offer that's another option, something else that they may consider, okay? One that I used not too long ago was actually a lady called and she had a property that she was selling, and it rung a bell because I had actually learned this from Lou Brown, okay? I was listening to a CD series it was actually a tape series, it was so old, okay? An 8-track series. No, but anyway, LP. But anyway, so it was a old tape series that I had listened to from Lou Brown, and he talked about the same situation where somebody had tried to sell him a house because they needed money for college tuition. Okay, so we had the same situation. Lady calls, she's selling the house. Why? Because I got to pay for my son's college. He's going to UWF, blah, 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 and we need X amount of dollars for this. So the offer we made to them was, okay, well, here's the deal. I want to do a lease option. So I'm going to go ahead and lease the property, but I didn't want to have to buy it. I don't have to pay straight cash. So this is what we'll do. We'll go ahead and do a lease option. I'll lease it from you for 4 years at a set price, at this set price that we're willing to offer you. And this is what we'll do. I'll go ahead and pay you 1 full year's rent up front, which will cover the college tuition for this year. And we'll do this lease option for 4 years. So every year, 1 year from today, you'll get another check for X amount. So if it's $800 a month times 12 months, $9,600 you'll get right before college tuition is due. You'll get it every single year for the next 4 years. This is just like me renting the property, right? But to her, it's like, okay, the college is paid for every year as soon as it's about to come due. You don't think people will agree to that? I once had people give me an owner finance mortgage with no payments and no interest for 5 years. Again, don't think for the seller. Make the offer, okay? Multiple offers, one creative that meets their need, one cash, and then you'll do one extra one that's creative. And a great way to frame it, you'll see the language down there and it's in your notes. What we've done before that's a great way to frame it because that instills confidence. And even if you mean what we've done means what my team of investors at PIG that I've partnered with and I'm a part of the group with, if that's what you mean, that's what you mean. What we've done before with other sellers is subject to, or however you're going to explain it. But when you say one of the things I always mention when I talk about subject to, because people start to get a little squeamy about it, is I always say, well, my attorney handles all the paperwork, blah, blah, right? As soon as you mention attorney, that, oh, okay, this is legit. I know Rob's shaking his head. He just did a subject to not too long ago. But when you say that, right, what we've done before is blah, 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 and my attorney handled all the paperwork. Now you instill confidence that you're not just like coming up with some crazy, weird, fraudulent, unethical, crime stuff that's coming out. What we've done before is it puts that in a way that even though it's creative, they see, oh, okay, this guy's done this before, this is legit, attorney's involved, et cetera, okay? Making multiple offers. Next one, overcoming objections. We're almost done, so hang with me. A few major objections I want to go over. These are important to understand. Of course, there's only one real major objection we come across. All right, we don't want to fear objections, right? Okay? Mostly what objections are, we don't want to fear hearing the word no, because mostly what objections are just a lack of understanding. So if we hear no or we hear, I don't know about that, maybe we need to dial things back and go over things a little bit more clearly, make sure we're all on the same page, make sure you really understood what their need was, what their motivation was, okay? But there really is only one main objection. If we've solved their problem, we've gone through all that, and for some reason they're not jiving with this, what is the number one objection we hear? It's not enough money, right? Ultimately, whether it's the down payment or the monthly payment, there's something that's going to have to do with money, right? There's going to be some objection that has to do with money. Whenever I get an objection related to money, if I've solved their problem and there's still an issue that they feel like there should be more money involved, the very first thing I like to do, it's not foolproof, but oftentimes it will get us to a place where it will frame the negotiation in such a way where they don't expect me to come up as high as they think I should, right? I want to go back and remind them of the concessions I've made. If I'm closing quickly, nobody else is going to be able to close this fast, right? If I'm closing in a week or two, listen, we're closing really quick. I'm going to be able to get access to this money. If I got to pull it from, a retirement account to get it quickly, that's going to cost me money. Or if I got to borrow it from, I frame it in such a way they understand there's money cost to me to get this money this quickly, so that's going to cost me money. Or if I'm giving them extra time in the house, I'm letting you stay here an extra few months. That means I can't rent it out. I can't do anything with it. I want them to see there is an expense to me here. This is not just, numbers on a paper, on a contract. There's real cost to me for this. Then I'm going to go through, remember, I'm taking it as is. There's a ton of repairs here. We're going to spend, I can show them my repair estimate. There's some big money here, so understand that. Also, we're paying all the closing costs. Most people aren't doing that. If you get a realtor, there could be thousands of dollars in closing. I want to remind them of all the concessions I'm already doing, and then if I can, I want to make any non-price concessions that I can, okay? And by non-price concessions, okay, well, rather than raising the money or, raising the price, what if, you said you were going to leave the refrigerator, what if we go ahead and let you guys take that and take this, or we help arrange, to get you guys moved, or find out what the sticking point is and see if there's a way you can solve it. What if we give you an extra 2 weeks in the house because you're worried about not being able to get movers in time? Or find out what the sticking point is and see if you can solve it with a non-price concession. If you can't, yes, there's going to be times we obviously counter back and forth and come up in price, but I'm going to do everything I can to find other ways to meet their need before I go straight to price. Okay, don't agree too quickly when they start countering as far as price. Okay, that's the number one objection. Now, all these objections I'm going to go through, I've got three objections, so stick with me for about 10 more minutes because they're basically all price related, so you're going to see they're 1A, 1B, and 1C, okay? Because when somebody objects, typically it's mostly because of price, and they object in one of three main ways, okay? First of all, objection 1A, the house down the street, how many of you ever heard this one? Okay, the house down the street sold for X, right? And it's an insanely high amount of money, okay? Now, when I get that one, okay, yeah, on Zillow it says it's worth, I didn't put that in here, that's probably that's another objection, right? It's worth $1 million on Zillow. No. Okay, so objection 1A is the house down the street sold for X, okay? The first question I'm going to ask them certainly is, was that the list price or was that the sales price, right? Because I can list an $80,000 house for $1 million, right? Okay? So that doesn't mean that's what it sold for. So is that what it listed for or is that what it sold for? Do you know, right? So they may or may not know. They just know it listed. And the other issue is 99% of the time the house isn't even close to comparable, right? You're sitting in a 700 square foot 3-1 and it was like a 2,200 square foot fully renovated 4-3 or some new construction somebody built on the corner or whatever. So they're usually not anywhere even close to comparable, okay? But that is one of the objections you're going to get is they're going to start telling you, I saw this house down the street, and that's how they've decided what theirs is worth, okay? So you got to be prepared for that and make sure that you're ready to come against those objections. You should be prepared with comps. I mentioned that earlier in the teaching. You need to make sure that when you pull comps, not only are you pulling comps to support what you think is going to be your ARV to determine what you can offer for it, you should also be pulling some comps that are going to support your low offer. So if they call you on the carpet and say, hold up a second, why is your offer at this number, right? Even though I know you're meeting my need, blah, 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 I feel like this house is worth more, that you show them some other homes in the area that are maybe similar in condition or what have you, that were also at least, sold on the MLS for quite a bit less, right? Be prepared with comps. The other thing is, if you don't, and this is a good reason, I think Eric may have slipped out, but any of these realtors, Corey, anybody that's a realtor in here, you need to make sure you have one on your team. I taught a whole lesson on gatekeepers. I talked about realtors being the kind of the gatekeepers to the data. You going on to the county website, whatever it is in Orlando or Norfolk or here, you go onto the county website, there's only limited data that you can get. You go onto the MLS, you see all the other houses that have sold. You can see interior pictures. You can see the description. So when it has a pool with a waterfall and a slide and, like gold-plated toilets and stuff, you realize why it sold for 10 times more than what they think their house is worth, right? So you don't get that data when you're looking at your property appraiser's website. So it's so critical you are either a licensed agent or connected with one, because that data gives you, that ammunition you need if there is kind of a back and forth negotiation and you have to support your price, okay? And in the end, the data speaks for itself. Anybody who sat down with a seller, if you're able to show them, a lot of people have unrealistic views of what their house is worth because Zillow or whatever, you sit down and show them these are the 3 houses that sold right on your street in the last 6 months. Why is yours worth $80,000 more than these? It pretty much, it changes the conversation very quickly when you are prepared with those comparables, okay? Objection 1B, okay, they're all 1A, B, and C because they're all going to be price related. These are the most common. Of course, there's a million types of objections that could come up. I can't touch them all. But the most common are going to be price related. 1B, another investor offered me X. Now, you've dealt with that one, I'm sure, before, okay? You've had somebody comes along and offers more money. Now, the first question I would ask is, did you focus on building rapport? Okay, any of us that have been in this business, it's not foolproof, okay? I'm not saying somebody really likes you and so they're going to sell it to you for $20,000 less, okay? But anybody who's been in this business for a while will tell you numerous stories where a seller said, somebody offered me more, but I'm going to go with you because I really feel a connection. So again, if you've been good at understanding communication styles, empathizing with their situation, if it's only a few $1,000 difference, oftentimes they'll still go with you. If they're not and they keep telling you what the other investor offered, you probably need to up your rapport game just a little bit, okay? I'm not saying it's foolproof, but if you hear that a lot, you may not be connecting with them at the right level. The second thing to make sure you ask is, did the other investor see the house? Okay, I can't tell you how many people will make an offer over the phone. Oh yeah, we'll be able to give you this. And it's just to try to, get kind of a conversation started. Then when they meet them at the house, they go, whoa, I didn't realize it was gutted down to the studs. We'll have to probably back off that offer just a little bit, okay? So I want to know, has the other investor walked through it? Now, if the other investor has walked through it, and the other investor, and you have tried to build rapport, and they still are sticking with that other investor, you're going to have to understand that also when we get into a competitive environment, which I feel like we're definitely in now, right? We're getting into a more heated real estate market. The market's doing very well. A lot of investors out there, they're active all across the country. You need to understand that when you're in a competitive market, you better come up with your unique selling position, okay? So don't get mad and whine, just get better, okay? Okay, don't get bitter, get better, right? I've had people complain about every real estate market. I've been doing this so long, been in it 15 years. I've been in hot markets, been in terrible markets and in hot markets. And all along there were people complaining, right? When it was really, really hot, oh, it's too competitive, I make an offer and there's 9 other offers, blah, 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 right? And then it's like you make an offer and there's crickets. There's nobody around, nobody else making an offer, but you can't sell it because the market's crashed. And blah. There's always people complaining about something, right? But I was making money the whole time, right? So you've got to find where your niche is and make money there. So don't get bitter, right? Just get better. And so you got to either become a better marketer, connect better, or you're going to have to come up with a unique selling position. And these were just some things I threw out there that may be meaningless, but you may be more flexible on timing with sellers. You may give a portion of your profits to charity. You may say that you do credit repair, that you do moving assistance, that you do debt negotiations. You could throw all kind of things out there, but you want to make sure if you're in a competitive environment and you're meeting, there's 5, 6, 7 investors, you meet with a motivated seller and you see they've got 10 letters on their desk, you better make sure that there's something differentiating you from the other investors. And when we get into that type of environment, you need to have that unique selling position. I don't know what that is for you, but you need to make sure that you find that. And so when you start facing that objection of there's another investor involved, you need to make sure that you're finding how you're different as an investor and why your offer and why working with you would be better, right? But if all else fails, highball it. Okay? And I'm going to talk more about that next month. Okay? We're going to talk about post-closing or post-contract negotiations next month. And what I'm talking about at highball it is if you're in a competitive scenario with another investor and they say, oh, there's another investor that offered me 50, then offer 52. get it under contract, get it signed, and go back and renegotiate after your home inspection, okay? If you're going to lose the deal anyway, highball it. Okay, that is a strategy that has been used for years. It's been used years and years in California because their market has been so competitive. Even with retail buyers, they'll go in and pay full price and then go and try to renegotiate after the home inspection. Highball it. That is a negotiating tactic. Okay, give them what they're asking for it and then go back and try to renegotiate. Because again, they're going to feel the pressure to be consistent. They signed a contract with you. If you go back and try to renegotiate, pointing out certain repairs that need to be made, oftentimes you can work that price back down. Okay, that's 1B. Objection 1C. Is the realtor told me I could get X, okay? You've heard that one before. Corey went over there and he told him a big story about how he knows he could get him $50,000 more than I'm offering, blah, 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 okay? And so you want to have these numbers prepared. You want to kind of have this memorized. I've kind of put it out for you, but you could probably come up with a few more things to add to it. I have used this many times. In fact, there was a deal on Enda. I know that, I think actually, were you involved in it? Did you wholesale that to me? Okay. I know that Adam did one on Enda too, but anyway, a few years ago, no, you didn't wholesale with me. I met with another guy. Anyway, we sat down across from this lady and went through this whole process, and I mean, she was all on board. Okay, she got it, like she got it. So anyway, it's just going through, and you can very quickly point out the difference between the realtor value who says it's worth $100,000. Okay, and those of you watching online, grab the notes, look at it. You can kind of walk through it as I go through it, and what we're offering at $60,000. Okay, because obviously a lot of times realtors, if they're all competing for a listing and 3 of them go look at it, it's not uncommon for a realtor to kind of shoot high and be optimistic about the value of the price. And so they may say it's $100,000, they think they can get $100,000, but there's numerous listings that have to take a price drop or a couple price drops before they actually get a contract. That's not uncommon, right? And so if we started at $100,000, we had to drop the price to $95,000. Now we've come down a little bit. Now, also, once you do get to an offer, who offers full price anymore, right? I mean, buyers usually like to negotiate, and so the average concession nationwide is about 3.5%. So if you take 3.5% off 95, now we're down to 92. Additionally, the real estate agent is going to charge a commission. You know, nationwide, that's average 6-7%. We're not charging you a commission, but they're going to charge you a commission. You throw 7% on there, now we're down to 85.5. Okay. Plus, you're going to have to pay closing costs. Remember when I presented this offer to you, Mr. Seller, I said I was going to pay all the closing costs. But if you have to pay standard seller closing costs, that's going to be another probably about 3%. So now we're down to 82.9. You're probably going to also have to make some repairs. You remember, I'm taking it as is, Mr. Seller, but if you sell it to a traditional, you go through on the realtor route and you sell it to a traditional buyer, the contract, the Florida Association of Realtors contract or the Alabama contract or the Virginia contract, they're all different, but they usually have a limit of about 1.5% of the sales price for repairs. So if you have to do another 1.5%, that's 81.5. That's if they don't find there's a problem with the roof that's more than that. You know they're not going to buy it. So if it's a big repair, you're still probably going to have to do it. But let's just say 1.5%, we're down to 81.5. Plus holding costs. Realtors ask for a 6-month listing. Why do they ask for a 6-month listing? Because they think there's a chance it might take 6 months to sell. I'm going to close in 2 weeks. If you got to sit on this property for another 6 months, you got 6 months worth of payments, 6 months worth of property taxes, 6 months worth of utilities and water and blah, 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 right? So that's another $6,000 in holding costs. Now we're down to 75. And it's also not uncommon, if you've ever sold a house, you know that it's not uncommon for buyers to ask for you to pay a portion of their closing costs. Isn't that right, Regina? She's in the real estate business. She knows. So now if you have to pay some of the buyer's closing costs, now we're down to about $70,000, and you could get it under contract, wait 30 days, and find out their financing falls through, and you got to start the process all over again. So you could have $70,000 on a deal that might fall through, or I'm offering you $60,000, and we're closing in 2 weeks cash. Which one would you like to do? Right? Boy, that frames it. But the realtor said I could get 100 and you only offering me 60. They feel like they're getting hosed, right? They're really getting taken advantage of. You walk them through it like that. Oh, the realtor said I could get 100, but you may end up only netting 70, and who knows whether that deal's going to close. I'm here, bird, what is bird in the hand, better than two in the bush, right? So here I am, bird in the hand. I'm breaking out my cliches all tonight, right? So you got to be, and I'm screwing them all up. I think I'm getting them right. I just think I'm getting them wrong. But anyway, so now it's 70 and 60 isn't a bridge too far. I'm on a roll. But oh, I'm on a roll, people, right? You get where I'm going here, right? 60 and 70, that's not too big of a leap. So now we know, now this objection is something that we can overcome realistically. These are the ones you're going to face more often than not. So you want to be prepared, locked and loaded for these objections, be able to overcome them. Okay, like I mentioned, next month, we're almost done. I'm wrapping in just a few minutes. Apologize for going late on the East Coast. Hang with me. Next month, we're going to be going through carrying this over into post-contract negotiations. Okay, there's some very important negotiations. It doesn't stop when you get it under contract. Sometimes you're going to come across liens and judgments that are going to be important to be able to negotiate. Sometimes you're going to come across a short sale you got to be able to negotiate. Sometimes you're going to either use the highballing tactic, or maybe you weren't using the highballing tactic. You just put it in an offer and you got to go back to the seller after the inspection and know how to negotiate because of something you found in the home inspection. We're going to cover all of those post-contract negotiations and how to do those effectively. We're going to cover those next month. So again, that is going to be on Tuesday, August 14th, here in Pensacola, there in Orlando, in Norfolk as well. And those of you that are watching by live streaming, we're going to be doing that, okay?